So I wanted to take an opportunity to share a couple images that we have in our collection. This one in particular, where it says East Pittsburgh. This is a glass negative that was donated to us from Don Vitus. His father took the original image. And one other image, and I'm going to go in a little bit more detail, is this picture that Charles Vitus took in East Pittsburgh, and you'll understand why in a minute. So these are the two images we're going to talk about and why I'm bringing them up in the Trafford Historical Society. There's a picture of Charles Vitus, that he is originally from Sutersville, but he settled and built a house in Trafford. So this is the East Pittsburgh works taken by Charles Vitus, the glass negative that we have. We're going to talk a little bit about the details in this photograph. This image was taken from the George Westinghouse Memorial Bridge overlooking the RIDC Park, Keystone Commons. The one building in particular that we're going to look at is right here, that is visible from a couple of the images that Charles Vitus took. That's the G building. This is a different perspective of the RIDC Park at Keystone Commons, and where Vitus was standing would have been up in this area on the hill prior to the George Westinghouse Memorial Bridge being built, and his line of vision would have been coming down here to view this building here. So why is the Trafford Historical Society interested in this building in particular? The G building, I was told, meant general offices, but it's a reminder that we always assume that buildings like this are going to be around until they're not. And I had this video, or rather I had this image from Charles Vitus, and we had it donated to us many years ago, and I never quite understood how I would use it as a presentation for Trafford, but I thought I'd do a before and after type, or a then and now type of an image. But unfortunately, now that the building's gone, I can't do that, but we can talk about the significance of this building and how it relates to Trafford. These are just a few shots that were shared with us by Chuck. I understand he once worked in that building, so he had an interest in, unfortunately, watching the demolition. And there is a video by the contractor that did this on YouTube that you can watch. They speeded up the process of showing the demolition. So looking back at the Vitus photo, again, I'm going to point out the building right here that we're going to focus on. This is just a close-up of that G building. But the one image that I really like that was taken by Vitus, Charles Vitus, it has a handwritten note at the bottom, and he has 1904, 1905. But this is the image that I think is great. I wanted to do the then and now picture, but a couple things I want to point out about it is just the fantastic detail, the ornate masonry that was done, along with some of the houses they're no longer there. And the one building we're going to take a look at as well is off to the right corner with the round window. That happened to be a Westinghouse building as well. But we're going to focus on some similarities with this and one of the buildings in the UK. This is just a close-up of the detail that was once on the building that Vitus captured that are no longer there. In fact, I saw an image online that was probably about 1975. Those finials were not on the building either. So this is a bird's eye view of the Westinghouse works in East Pittsburgh. The one photograph there shows the architect who actually designed the building that we are looking at, as well as the rest of the plant. His name was Thomas Rodd, a famous architect in Pittsburgh, and he actually did some work in the UK as well, which we're going to look at. So the East Pittsburgh works, as well as the foundry in Trafford, They were all completed by James Stewart and Company. And if you want to get into some details, just go to Google and search some Stewart structures. It's on Google Books. It was printed in January of 1909, but this is our humble Trafford foundry that no longer exists. And we spend a lot of time talking about the stories that come out of this plant. I just put this here for some clarity on a timeline as to when things were built. The British works were completed after the Westinghouse expanded into East Pittsburgh, and then Trafford, being founded in 1904, was the name coming from the British Westinghouse works in the UK. So this is a particular image I've always appreciated that came out of Manchester, the UK, and it's an image of a building we just looked at. It's the Westinghouse Works in Trafford Park, England, and it's really the origin of our community's name. This is just another image of the Westinghouse Electric in the UK. Westinghouse purchased about 130 acres in 1899, and the factory began producing turbines and electric generators here in 1902, so just about a year before Trafford started any production. And just one more image of the buildings in the UK. This photograph was taken in 1903, just about the same time that Trafford was just firing up Trafford, PA was firing up its foundry. The building that you see in the center, what looks like the G building in East Pittsburgh, it no longer exists in Manchester, and its demolition began in January of 2002. And if you're interested in any more history of that UK structures, there's details in that Google book that I mentioned earlier. So back to East Pittsburgh and the image from Charles Vitus. The one building seen here is the Pittsburgh Meter Company. So this is an image of the Pittsburgh Meter Company, a postcard that I found on eBay. This building would have been located along Braddock Avenue. One last picture of that Pittsburgh Meter Works. Now this was built before any of the other buildings that we saw previously in East Pittsburgh. So the G building would have been to the left of this building, and we're looking at a split rail fence that goes from left to right running down what's now Braddock Avenue. This is a map from 1895. I just wanted to point out this is where the Pittsburgh Meter Company was located. Right across the street here at Cable Avenue, this is the G building that we were looking at. This is just a close-up of some of the houses that show up in Charles Vitus's photograph, and the map on the left shows 1903, probably some of the houses where they were located along Braddock Avenue, across from the Pittsburgh Meter Works. So going back to that Vitus photograph overlooking East Pittsburgh, what I find interesting is this was taken before the bridge, obviously the George Westinghouse Bridge, and also Route 30 would have been in the back running along here. And I have a bonus photo that we just recently received at the Historical Society. Again, wasn't sure how I would introduce it as a part of Trafford history, but I think you'll appreciate it. So many of you will recall the events of 2018 when the Route 30 collapsed, requiring the rebuilding of the whole road in that hillside. This is just another angle of that area. I want to point out the one road here, which is Ridge Avenue, and you can see some of the houses that were built on the side of the hill. We're going to see a photo that was taken in 1939. So this is the bonus photo of the East Pittsburgh area. It was donated to us by Harry and Diane Fales of Pitcairn. They believe it was taken by Adolf Moucher in 1939. It's dated on the back, but Moucher was a former Westinghouse employee, you can just make out in the background the Westinghouse Bridge, so they give you some perspective. But it's a great photograph of Route 30, and I'm going to zoom in next to get some more detail. So this is some of the houses that were along Ridge. What I like about this photo, and I'll point out, are the number of stairs that would lead, and you can see someone on the stairs coming underneath 30, and there's it looks like a couple coming under 30, and there's another couple right here coming down the path that led down to East Pittsburgh. You can imagine how many people would have worked or lived in these communities that worked down at the East Pittsburgh plant. So I hope you appreciated some of the images that we received from Don Vitus, from his father, Charles Vitus, and also that one bonus photo from the Fales family in Pitcairn. Our group typically meets the first Wednesday of every month at the Trafford Library, and all are welcome. We generally get together, and any kind of a donation that we receive, particularly things like this, we try to delve into the history. Thanks for watching.